Most people think they know Windows, XP, 7, maybe 11. But hidden behind the versions you recognize lies a secret graveyard. Operating systems so radical, Microsoft never let the world see them. Cairo promised object-oriented magic and died in a leadership battle. Neptune vanished after a single leak. Longhorn nearly tore Microsoft apart. The lost versions of Windows you never knew existed were supposed to change everything. But instead, their failures quietly rewrote the future. Why were these revolutionary Windows shuttered? And what really happened inside those canceled dreams? The answers begin with Cairo's impossible vision. Cairo's engineers set out to replace the familiar file and folder system with something far more powerful. At the heart of this vision was the Object File System, or OFS. Instead of files simply sitting in directories, every document, email, or photo would become a smart object, packed with properties and relationships. Imagine opening a folder and seeing not just a list of icons, but dynamic collections. Folders that update themselves based on who sent the file, when it was created, or even what project it belonged to. These weren't static locations, but living, breathing filters, able to pull together anything matching your search instantly. The technical ambition behind OFS was staggering. Cairo's designers wanted to build a system where data wasn't just stored, but understood. Every object carried metadata, descriptions, tags, connections to other objects. This meant you could ask your computer to show every contract signed in 1993, or every photo featuring a specific colleague, and the system would assemble the results on the fly. Under the hood, OFS worked more like a database than a traditional file system. It indexed every object, enabling complex queries that were impossible with old-fashioned folders. To tie everything together, Cairo leaned heavily on Microsoft's new Component Object Model, or COM, and Object Linking and Embedding, OLE. These technologies allowed different programs to share and manipulate objects seamlessly. A chart in a document wasn't just a static image, it was a live object, ready to be edited by Excel right from within Word. The vision was a world where applications and data blurred together, giving users unprecedented control and flexibility. At the 1991 Professional Developers Conference, Microsoft showed early prototypes of these ideas: dynamic folders, property-driven searches, and a shell interface that felt years ahead of its time. The excitement was real. For a moment, it seemed like the future of personal computing was about to arrive. But as Cairo's ambitions soared, the technical challenges grew. The dream of object-centric storage would haunt Microsoft's engineers for decades, inspiring later projects that tried and struggled to finish what Cairo had started. In 1994, a group of Microsoft's top executives gathered at a secluded off-site retreat. The air was thick with tension. On one side stood Jim Allchin, a blunt, pragmatic engineer who had taken charge of the Windows NT team. On the other was Nathan Myhrvold, Microsoft's chief technology officer and Cairo's greatest champion. Myhrvold believed Cairo's object-oriented vision could leapfrog every competitor, but Allchin was losing patience with endless delays and shifting targets. The meeting quickly turned into a showdown. Voices rose. Myhrvold pushed for more time and resources, arguing that Cairo's grand design would define the next decade. Allchin countered that the project was spinning out of control, its ambitions outpacing what the company could realistically deliver. He called for a return to basics: stable code, shippable products, and a focus on what actually worked. The debate grew heated. Colleagues described it later as a knockdown, drag-out battle, with neither side willing to back down. For years, Cairo had been the company's moonshot. Now, it was a source of frustration and embarrassment, with missed milestones piling up and no end in sight. The executives listened, weighed the arguments, and, in the end, sided with Allchin. Cairo's unified vision was finished. the project would be broken up, its most promising parts scattered across other teams. The dream of an object-centric Windows would survive only in fragments. Some code here, a feature there, but never as a complete system. The fallout was immediate. Developers who had poured years into Cairo were reassigned or saw their work quietly folded into other projects. For some, it felt like the end of an era, a moment when Microsoft traded ambition for pragmatism. Yet, that decision at the retreat set a pattern that would echo through future Windows projects. When the vision threatened to outrun reality, leadership would step in and pull the plug. Cairo's collapse wasn't just a technical failure, it was a clash of personalities and priorities, a reminder that even the boldest ideas can fall to earth when the stakes get too high. Windows Neptune set out to rethink how families interacted with their computers at home. One of its boldest experiments was the concept of activity centers, interactive hubs built with HTML that grouped everyday tasks into simple, web-like pages. Instead of digging through layers of menus, users would find dedicated spaces for photos, music, communication, and home management. Each center was designed to feel familiar, borrowing the look and feel of the web at a time when most operating systems still revolved around static icons and rigid folders. At the core of Neptune's home-friendly approach was a new system for user accounts. The operating system introduced distinct roles: owner, adult, and child, each with its own level of access and control. Parents could set up accounts for their kids, limit what programs or websites they could use, and even schedule computer time. These parental controls were managed through a streamlined interface, making it much easier to keep family computers safe and organized. For the first time, Windows began to recognize that the people using a PC weren't all the same, and that kids and adults needed different experiences. The technology behind these features was surprisingly forward-thinking. Activity centers ran on a hybrid of HTML and Windows code, blending the flexibility of the web with the power of the desktop. The account management system relied on a new framework that treated user roles not just as passwords, but as profiles with real, enforceable rules. While some of these ideas were rough around the edges, they pointed the way toward a more personal, family-centric computer. These innovations didn't just vanish when Neptune was shelved. The vision of activity centers and smart user accounts would quietly shape the next generation of Windows, showing up in later features and inspiring how Microsoft thought about the home PC. Late in 1999, a copy of Windows Neptune Build 5111 slipped out of Microsoft's tight inner circle and landed in the hands of people who weren't supposed to have it. The leak didn't come from a seasoned industry insider, but from a teenager, one of a handful of external beta testers trusted with early builds. Back then, the underground world of software leaks revolved around private FTP servers and invite-only forums, where bragging rights and first access meant everything. Someone, somewhere, couldn't resist the temptation. The ISO image of Neptune 5111 quietly appeared on a small, exclusive FTP, and word spread fast. Within weeks, the build was circulating among Juarez groups and beta collectors, passed around like a secret too good to keep. Inside Microsoft, the mood shifted. Security teams scrambled to trace the leak, but the trail grew cold almost immediately. There were no splashy lawsuits, no FBI raids, just a sense of embarrassment that the company's next big thing for consumers was now public, unfinished, and out of their control. For the online collector scene, though, 5111 became a kind of digital artifact, a glimpse into a Windows that almost was. Enthusiasts picked it apart, searching for hidden features and clues about where Microsoft was heading next. The Neptune leak didn't just expose a project. It revealed how porous even the most secretive software development could be at the dawn of the millennium. By the end of 1999, Neptune was canceled. Its codebase merged with Odyssey to form the foundation of Windows XP. But for a brief moment, a handful of teenagers and underground archivists held the keys to Microsoft's future, and the story of Neptune's lost build became legend in the world of tech history. In early 2003, a small group inside Microsoft gathered around glowing screens, chasing a dream that had eluded the company for over a decade. Their mission? To finally deliver a file system that could understand your life, not just store your files. The project was called WinFS, Windows Future Storage. Instead of rigid folders and file names, WinFS promised a world where every document, photo, or email became a living object, rich with connections and meaning. You could search for every contract signed by a certain person, or instantly gather every photo from a trip, no matter where it was saved. Under the hood, WinFS ran on a powerful SQL server engine, turning your hard drive into a relational database. Data wasn't just stored, it was organized, indexed, and linked together, ready for complex queries that felt more like conversations than commands. The vision didn't stop at storage. Longhorn, the code name for the next Windows, was set to debut a user interface unlike anything seen before. The design team, led by Hillel Cooperman, worked out of what they called the Design Pod, a tight-knit group of designers, researchers, and engineers obsessed with reimagining how people interacted with their computers. Their days were filled with sketches, storyboards, and rapid-fire prototypes. Every detail mattered, from the way light played across translucent windows to the way information flowed between apps. The result was Cairo, a glassy, layered interface where windows floated and flipped in 3 dimensions, and data moved as smoothly as a pane of glass sliding across a table. Early demos wowed executives and press alike. In private sessions, the pod showed Bill Gates how a single photo could connect to people, places, and emails, all through WinFS's web of relationships. Virtual folders responded instantly to natural searches. Show me all the files about Project Apollo, and the system assembled the results on the fly. For a moment, it seemed like the future had arrived. Inside the pod, the atmosphere was electric. Cooperman pushed his team to think beyond what Windows had ever done, challenging every assumption about the desktop. The group was small, barely a dozen people, but they moved fast, fueled by late-night debates and a sense that they were building something truly new. They weren't just designing windows and menus. They were trying to make the computer an extension of the user's mind. The excitement was contagious, spreading to engineers across the Longhorn project. For a while, the impossible felt within reach. But ambition comes with a price. As the design pod's ideas spread, the technical demands on WinFS grew heavier. Integrating a relational database into every copy of Windows was a challenge even Microsoft had never faced. Still, in those early days, hope ran high. The demos were dazzling, the vision was clear, and the team believed they were on the verge of changing everything. What they didn't know was how quickly that hope would collide with reality. By the summer of 2004, Longhorn was no longer a vision of the future. It was a daily grind of broken builds and mounting frustration. The bug tracker was overflowing. More than 10,000 active bugs clogged the system, and every day brought new ones faster than the old could be fixed. Integration tests failed so often that some builds wouldn't even install on Microsoft's own reference machines. Engineers watched as performance benchmarks slipped further behind Windows XP, with some test runs clocking in at double or even triple the resource usage. The sense of progress that once electrified the design pod had vanished, replaced by a steady drip of resignation. Inside Microsoft, the mood was tense. Managers huddled in war rooms, staring at dashboards that refused to budge. Each meeting brought more bad news: failed regression tests, unresolved driver issues, features that worked only in isolation but broke the whole system when merged. Developers who had once stayed late to chase new ideas now spent their nights untangling code that seemed to fight back at every turn. The ambition of WinFS and the Aero interface had become a liability. The more they tried to fix, the more the project unraveled. On August 27, 2004, Jim Alchin delivered the order that would upend everything. In a terse memo sent across the division, he called for an immediate reset. All ongoing feature work was to stop. The entire Longhorn codebase, years in the making, would be scrapped. From that moment on, development would restart from the stable ground of Windows Server 2003 Service Pack 1. Only features deemed absolutely necessary would survive, and even those would have to prove themselves all over again. The message was blunt. The only way forward was to start over. The fallout was swift. Teams that had spent years building WinFS, Avalon, and other experimental pillars saw their work shelved overnight. Many designers and engineers left the project, some transferring to other divisions, others leaving Microsoft altogether. Those who stayed faced weeks of triage, porting whatever could be salvaged onto the new codebase. Morale hit rock bottom. One developer described it as the day Longhorn died. For a company that prided itself on relentless innovation, the reset was a sobering reminder of the limits of ambition. But for the first time in years, there was also a sense of clarity, an end to the chaos, and a chance, however painful, to rebuild on solid ground. In 2019, Microsoft unveiled Windows 10X, a platform built from the ground up for a new generation of devices. The plan was bold: a lightweight, modular operating system designed to power dual-screen tablets like the Surface Neo, as well as affordable laptops for schools and businesses. 10X broke away from decades of legacy code by isolating traditional apps in secure containers and streamlining the interface. The start menu was centered, live tiles were gone, and the whole system promised speed and simplicity. Underneath, the architecture was flexible enough to be adapted for anything from tablets to desktops, thanks to a core called Windows Core OS. But as 2020 unfolded, the world changed. The pandemic brought global supply chain chaos, and the Surface Neo was quietly delayed, then shelved. Inside Microsoft, weekly meetings grew tense as teams debated whether to launch a brand new OS when demand had swung back to traditional laptops and remote work. By early 2021, the decision came down. Windows 10X would not ship as a standalone product. Instead, its best ideas, like the centered start menu, improved window management, and a tighter security model, were folded directly into Windows 11. A former 10X program manager later recalled that, while it stung to see months of work upended, we saw our UI vision live again in Windows 11. Even in cancellation, 10X proved that lost projects can shape the future in unexpected ways. Legal and regulatory pressure has a way of reshaping even the most ambitious software plans. In the mid-1990s, Microsoft's lawyers and product strategists faced a new kind of threat. The Department of Justice was circling, watching for any move that might tighten Windows' grip on the market. That's where Windows Nashville comes in. Sometimes called Windows 96, Nashville was meant to be a quick follow-up to Windows 95, with the internet woven directly into the desktop. The centerpiece was the so-called Internet Shell, a seamless blend of web and local content, turning every folder into a potential web page. But as antitrust scrutiny mounted, shipping a web-integrated Windows looked like waving a red flag in front of regulators. The technical work was mostly done, but the risk was too high. Nashville was quietly shelved, its features repackaged as updates to Windows 95 and bundled with Internet Explorer 4.0. The boldest ideas never shipped as a standalone product. A decade later, the cycle played out again, this time under the codename Blackcomb. Blackcomb was supposed to be the true leap after Windows XP, finally delivering on dreams like instant search and a fully relational file system. But after the chaos of Longhorn, Microsoft's roadmap was rewritten. Blackcomb was scaled back, renamed Vienna, and then quietly absorbed into the more measured release that became Windows 7. Grand plans gave way to careful pruning, with only the most stable ideas making it out alive. In both cases, outside forces, legal risk, market shifts, and the scars of past overreach forced Microsoft to rethink how much innovation could safely be delivered at once. The graveyard of lost Windows versions is as much a story of external constraint as it is of technical ambition. In 1991, Microsoft revealed Cairo at the Professional Developers Conference, promising an object-oriented Windows that never fully arrived. Across 3 decades, projects like Cairo, Neptune, Longhorn, and 10X were all canceled or merged before completion. Yet their core ideas, object file systems, user account controls, and modular interfaces, shaped the Windows we use today. While detailed internal documents, such as the 2004 Longhorn Reset Memo, are available, some technical specifics and prototype code remain sealed or lost. The reasons for cancellation varied. Leadership disputes in 1994 ended Cairo, security leaks exposed Neptune, and engineering backlogs forced Longhorn's reset. Today, features from these unfinished systems live on in Windows 11's design and functionality. The archival record is incomplete, but it's clear that every abandoned version left a real mark. Microsoft's lost Windows projects were not dead ends. They were necessary experiments that continue to influence our daily computing experience.